Before comparing and contrasting my informed consent form with the ACA Code of Ethics 2014 and Tennessee state rules and regulations regarding giving informed consent, I'd like to go over two quotes by Remley and Herlihy 2019 and Nussbaum and Associates 2017 regarding the importance of giving informed consent and making sure the client has the necessary information and that the counselor is qualified to give this informed consent and is well versed in what needs to be covered. So Remley and Herlihy 2019 state that most clients are not experts in counseling, therefore they rely on the counselor to give them necessary information in order to make a good decision. The counselor in doing so promotes autonomy and self-determination, and this is actually integral in forming a therapeutic alliance. Nussbaum and Associates 2017 also go into the importance of risk and benefits communication with the client, especially within a research setting, stating that inadequate education and training of the research staff responsible for giving informed consent contribute to deficiencies in the informed consent process. So not only do these quotes give us an understanding of why informed consent is important, but also that it's important to know the information that needs to be shared with the client. My informed consent form came from True North Christian Counseling, and I will be comparing and contrasting that with the ACA Code of Ethics 2014 primarily because it was actually very difficult to find information on the Tennessee state rules and regulations regarding giving informed consent because Tennessee doesn't really have many. Tennessee state rules and regulations do cover a lot for counselors and their qualifications, licensures, advertisements, and their best practices. However, while it does state that informed consent is necessary and mandated by the state, it doesn't necessarily go over specific information needed to be given from the counselor to the client. It primarily gives a definition of informed consent, which basically states that consent is given voluntarily and with the client's free volition, that they have a right to withdraw at any time. It states, like I just said, that informed consent is required to be given. However, most of the information regarding informed consent by Tennessee was about the client's capacity to give informed consent. So there's not a whole lot to compare there with my form. However, my form does not go over the client's capacity to give the consent. However, it does state that the informed consent is given voluntarily by the client with their own free volition, and they do have a right to withdraw at any time. So that is something positive that they do that Tennessee state law requires. So I'm going to delve into my form. I'll do the pros first. My informed consent form did talk about the services that they provided and that the services integrated Christian principles and that the counselors they employed did have a God-centered understanding of people. However, I do believe this is very general. It is not very specific. It is very clear that the agency itself gave this informed consent form because within that same section it stated that the client needed to talk to their specific counselor regarding their background, qualifications and credentials, and their approach to counseling. So none of that was written in the form, which is not best practice. The form also covers the terms of confidentiality and its limitations. It goes over the circumstances and reasons why that confidentiality might be breached, including court proceedings, consultation, reasonable cause for child abuse, and potential threats of violence against another person. However, it does not go over two things. One, it does not go over whether or not confidentiality might be breached of the client intending to commit suicide. And two, when stating the limits to confidentiality regarding consultation, it did state in there that clients would probably not know if their counselor were consulting. And we do know from Remley and Herlihy that this is not best practice and that a client does have the right to know whether or not their counselor is seeking consultation or supervision. This form did, however, go over appointment lengths, cancellation fees, payment, and emergency accessibility. However, that was basically all the information that it covered. It was less than 3 pages, it was very short, and it was very broad in general. The form left out information about the purposes and goals of counseling, techniques and procedures used, the limitations of counseling, as I said, the client-specific qualifications and credentials, continuation of counseling upon incapacitation or death of the counselor, the role of technology, and the client's right to know and view the records. It also left out risks of diagnosis, and as I said before, it did not go over the client's capacity to give informed consent. So while this form did cover some necessary information. It needs to be expanded upon, and it needs to add information from the ACA Code of Ethics that it left out.